All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? You're not used to seeing me solo on the podcast, but I wanted to share a special, message with you this morning because it's been very heavy on my heart. So thank you guys for tuning in. Just yesterday, I recorded a 90-minute long podcast with the rest of my team where we were sitting down and having intentional conversation and deliberation to try to figure out exactly what is happening in Minneapolis right now. And a lot of great points were brought up. A lot of evidence was presented. We had Cornbread and Blake coming at it from a law enforcement angle to talk about things specifically based off of the knowledge and the skills and the background that they have in law enforcement. We had Chili coming out with lots of really interesting information about how these protests are being funded and what is the agenda behind the chaos that we see happening in certain places here in the United States of America. The government theatrics, the evil billionaires who are funding these things, all great stuff, right? Now, I actually chose to pull that episode off of public release. It was supposed to come out this morning, as a matter of fact, and I chose to do that. I'm going to tell you why I chose to do that, and then I'm going to tell you why I'm here to talk to you today. The reason that I chose to do that is because as I have watched and listened to and read the public discourse around what is currently happening in our country, I have just about come to the realization that there are very few reasonable people left who are interested in actually trying to deliberate on what is happening and get as close as they can possibly get to the truth, all right? There's very little just conversation going on the public platforms. And what I realized is when we sit down here and have a conversation, no matter what we say here, all we are going to do is add to the anger and the vitriol and the chaos around the conversation in the public arena. And that's the reason I chose to pull it down, to be quite honest with you. The amount of reasonable people that exist, at least online, based off of the conversation that I see, is waning, and it is waning very quickly. What are most people interested in doing? They're most interested in proving that their viewpoint is right. Again, that's the difference between debate and deliberation. We should talk to each other and try to get as close as we can get to the truth, because that is the way forward always. Chose to pull it down. We're going to release that full episode on our Patreon platform. By the way, that's not some sort of ploy to get you to go and sign up for Patreon because you can listen to this special episode that I pulled down off of public release. I don't care whether you join Patreon or not. That doesn't make any difference to me. The reason I chose to release it there is because that is a place where we do have a vast majority of reasonable people who can listen to what we have to say here and who can have good, sound, unemotional conversation about different perspectives, all right? And that's why I'm putting it out over there on Patreon. Now, let me get to the heart of what I want to tell you today. I want to share with you something that I haven't heard any other talking head on this subject even come close to sharing this point right here. It is that I truly believe that our way of life here in America is on the verge of collapse, not just because of this single event, but because of all of the consecutive series of events that have essentially happened since 2020 and even prior to 2020, but especially 2020. It changed everything. We have, as a nation, never recovered from that. And the consecutive series of events that have been happening up to this very day that you're listening to this, have been very frequent, and There has really been no pause or reset for us as a nation. Now, I'm telling you this as a former U.S. Navy SEAL. And the reason that I've arrived at this conclusion is because of my past experience as a former U.S. Navy SEAL. When you do that job, not only does it expose you to places in other places in the world that most of you have never been, you actually go to these places, you live there, you experience it, but it also shows you how fine the line is between order and chaos, all right? That is what you are trying to do as a Special Forces soldier through your training, through everything that you do, is you are trying to control the chaos. You are trying to maintain order within your element, and you are trying to maintain control of the chaos, all right? That line is very, very thin. Very thin, and it is getting extremely thin to the point that I believe here in the United States right now, our way of life is hanging by a literal thread. All right? What do I mean by that? Our way of life. Well, let me tell you about some of the places that I have been and lived where there was no order. And if you think that that isn't a potential reality for us here in the United States, the absence of order, then you are dead wrong. You've lived your whole life assuming that you are going to still be able to do the things that you do, to live the way that you live, and to have the rights that you have. What you don't understand is that can very quickly go away, and I believe it is headed that direction. I have been to places where there is no law enforcement, there is no law. There are plenty of places where that is the reality. And let me tell you what those places are like. The bloated corpses of men, women, and children are dumped into the river on a daily basis. And I have watched those corpses of men, women, and children slowly float their way out to the sea, and no one cares and no one is concerned. And no one cares and no one is concerned because there's nothing you or anyone else can do about it. That is just the reality that they live in. In these places, you don't know where your next meal is going to come from. You don't know you don't have any work to do. You don't know what's going to go, how you're going to feed your family. You don't have the rights that you have and that you are enjoying right now as an American citizen, the right to sit down here and have this broadcast and to share these opinions. All of those things can go away, and your life can be controlled, or your life can be dictated by whoever the strongest warlord in your area is. You have no rights, you have no work, you have no food, there is no value to life, and it is complete and utter chaos because there is no law, and if there was law, there is no one to enforce the law. You do not comprehend how close you are to that. You do not understand how fine the line is between the way you're living right now and that. You don't get it because you've never seen it, and you don't understand that that is a reality. Those humans that live in those places are not that much different than us. They're humans, as a matter of fact, just like us. And we are here, and we think that the things that we see happening in sequence here in our country are just going to work themselves out. We in a certain sense, we don't even take them seriously because we don't understand what is potentially going to happen, what we are getting very, very close to. And I want to hopefully wake you up if you still have ears to hear and if you still have eyes to see. I want to wake you up to reality. That is what I want to do. I want to pull you out of the illusion that you have been living in to think that your way of life is going to be sustained by some magical force in spite of what we see going on from a day to day, a month to month, and a year to year frequency in this nation. Wake up. Your illusion is false. And all of this is very, very close to collapsing. And I truly believe that. And it's heavy. And it's heavy on my heart. If you do listen to the conversation that we had yesterday, you will hear some verifiable information about government manipulation and also the manipulation of these evil billionaires. You will hear verifiable information about the propaganda that they put out, the funding that they put toward creating this chaos and the reasons behind it. You will hear all of that. And when you hear that, I hope you will begin to realize that it is literally us, the citizens of this great country, versus them. If you will boil it down to what is going on, it is us, the citizens of this country, versus them. That is what is happening right here. And if we want to talk about solutions to this, how to move in a better direction, how this might change, we'll talk about that right now. Although I wonder if this is not just a very idealistic idea, I do wonder if this is even a possibility or if it is even worth mentioning. The reason that the government and all of these evil billionaires who are funding this chaos, who are putting out this propaganda, the reason that they are winning, and they are indeed winning, is because we, as citizens, have lost the ability to sit down and deliberate and talk to one another about the problems that we are facing, irregardless of our beliefs, our views, our backgrounds, what we think is right, what we think is wrong. We're always going to have those differences, but that does not mean that we cannot sit down and have a conversation with another citizen who disagrees with us and get just a little closer to the truth, because we figure out that we can actually learn something from one another. We are quickly losing the ability to do that. That is the definition of the division that is being created in this country. And the tactic of dividing and conquering is one of the oldest tactics known to man. And that is exactly the tactic that is being used against us, the normal people who are out here living the life that we live, doing the things that we do. We have lost that. We are losing that because we are feeding off of the propaganda that is out there for us to feed off of. And because we have become so rebellious and prideful and our mind is so distorted that we no longer care about what is right, but we care that we are right. And that's it. And so, what I want to dedicate myself to is being a part of the solution that must actually happen, or else we are indeed doomed. Have you ever read the Beatitudes? Whether you are a Christian or a Bible believer or not, I don't care. you should read the Beatitudes because it will give you things to model yourself after. And one of those Beatitudes is, blessed are the peacemakers. And when you sit down with someone who has opposing views to you, and you deliberate unemotionally in the absence of anger, and you both have equal respect for the sanctity of human life, that is indeed how peace is made. That isn't how we agree on everything, but that is how peace is made. And so look at the people around you in your community. Think about the conversations that you're having. Think about the division that exists between you and other people in your community, in your family, people who you are in proximity to, the division that you allow to exist between you and them, and maybe think about having a conversation with that person if, again, they are a reasonable person. I do also understand that there is a portion of people who are unreasonable and who this doesn't work for. But you should also ask yourself, are you in that category of an unreasonable person, whether you are a conservative or a liberal? And you ought to start taking the situation that we are faced with here in the United States of America a little more seriously. And just because you haven't seen what the human existence is like in the absence of order, in the absence of law, in the absence of being able to have reasonable conversations, just because you haven't seen those places, I want to remind you that they exist. And that is where we will wind up. If something specifically, us looking at the fact that it is us against them, if we don't realize that and quit feeding off of the propaganda that they give us, if we don't quit being so concerned with the fact that we are right and more concerned with what is actually right, we are doomed. If this made you think, share it with someone, as many people as you possibly can. Enough said.